Cote d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire, officially the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, is a country located on the south coast of West Africa. Ivory Coast's political capital is Yamoussoukro in the center of the country, while its economic capital and largest city is the port city of Abidjan. It borders Guinea to the northwest, Liberia to the west, Mali to the northwest, Burkina Faso to the northeast, Ghana to the east, and the Gulf of Guinea, Atlantic Ocean, to the south. The official language of the Republic is French, with local indigenous languages also being widely used that include Baoulé, Diola, Dan, Anyan, and Sabara Senufo.
In total, there are around 78 different languages spoken in Ivory Coast.
The country has large populations of Muslims, Christians primarily Roman Catholics, and various indigenous religions. Etymology of Cote d'Ivoire. Originally, Portuguese and French merchant explorers in the 15th and 16th centuries divided the west coast of Africa, very roughly, into 4 coasts, reflecting local economies. The coast that the French named the Côte d'Ivoire and the Portuguese named the Costa do Marfim, both, literally, mean Coast of Ivory, lay between what was known as the Guinée de Cabo Verde, so-called Upper Guinea, at Cap Vert, and Lower Guinea. There was also a pepper coast, also known as the Grain Coast, present-day Liberia, a Gold Coast, Ghana, and a Slave Coast, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. Like those, the name Ivory Coast reflected the major trade that occurred on that particular stretch of the coast, the export of ivory. Independence of Cote d'Ivoire. Félix Houphouët-Boigny, the son of a Baoulé chief, became Ivory Coast's father of independence. In 1944, he formed the country's first agricultural trade union for African cocoa farmers like himself. Angered that colonial policy favored French plantation owners, the union members united to recruit migrant workers for their own farms. Houphouët-Boigny soon rose to prominence and within a year was elected to the French Parliament in Paris. A year later, the French abolished forced labor. Houphouët-Boigny established a strong relationship with the French government, expressing a belief that Ivory Coast would benefit from the relationship, which it did for many years. France appointed him as a minister, the first African to become a minister in a European government. Politics in Cote d'Ivoire. The government is divided into 3 branches: the executive power, the legislative power, and judicial power. The Parliament of Ivory Coast consists of the indirectly elected Senate and the National Assembly, which has 255 members, elected for 5-year terms. Since 1983, Ivory Coast's capital has been Yamoussoukro, while Abidjan was the administrative center. Most countries maintain their embassies in Abidjan. The Ivorian population has suffered because of the ongoing civil war. International human rights organizations have noted problems with the treatment of captive non-combatants by both sides and the re-emergence of child slavery in cocoa production.
Although most of the fighting ended by late 2004, the country remains split in 2, with the north controlled by the new forces.
A new presidential election was expected to be held in October 2005, and the rival parties agreed in March 2007 to proceed with this, but it continued to be postponed until November 2010 due to delays in its preparation. Elections were finally held in 2010. The first round of elections was held peacefully and widely hailed as free and fair. Runoffs were held the 28th of November 2010, after being delayed 1 week from the original date of the 21st of November. Laurent Gbagbo as president ran against former Prime Minister Alassane Ouattara. On the 2nd of December, the Electoral Commission declared that Ouattara had won the election by a margin of 54% to 46%. In response, the Gbagbo-aligned Constitutional Council rejected the declaration, and the government announced that country's borders had been sealed. An Ivorian military spokesman said, "The air, land, and sea border of the country are closed to all movement of people and goods." Foreign relations in Cote d'Ivoire. In Africa, Ivorian diplomacy favors step-by-step economic and political cooperation. In 1959, Ivory Coast formed the Council of the Entente with Dahomey, Benin, Upper Volta, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Togo. In 1965, the African and Malagasy Common Organization (OCAM). In 1972, the Economic Community of West Africa (CEO). The latter organization changed to the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) in 1975. A founding member of the Organization of African Unity (OAU) in 1963 and then of the African Union in 2000, Ivory Coast defends respect for state sovereignty and peaceful cooperation between African countries. Worldwide, Ivorian diplomacy is committed to fair economic and trade relations, including the fair trade of agricultural products and the promotion of peaceful relations with all countries. Ivory Coast thus maintains diplomatic relations with international organizations and countries all around the world. In particular, it has signed United Nations treaties such as the Convention relating to the Status of Refugees, the 1967 Protocol, and the 1969 Convention governing specific aspects of refugee problems in Africa. Ivory Coast is a member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, African Union, La Francophonie, Latin Union, Economic Community of West African States, and South Atlantic Peace and Cooperation Zone. Economy in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast has, for the region, a relatively high income per capita $1,662 United States dollars in 2017 and plays a key role in transit trade for neighboring, landlocked countries. The country is the largest economy in the West African Economic and Monetary Union, constituting 40% of the Monetary Union's total GDP. The country is the world's largest exporter of cocoa beans, and the fourth largest exporter of goods, in general, in sub-Saharan Africa following South Africa, Nigeria, and Angola. In 2009, cocoa bean farmers earned $2.53 billion for cocoa exports and were projected to produce 630,000 metric tons in 2013. According to the Hershey Company, the price of cocoa beans is expected to rise dramatically in the upcoming years. Ivory Coast also has 100,000 rubber farmers who earned a total of $105 million in 2012. Close ties to France since independence in 1960, diversification of agricultural exports, and encouragement of foreign investment have been factors in the economic growth of the Ivory Coast. In recent years, Ivory Coast has been subject to greater competition and falling prices in the global marketplace for its primary agricultural crops, coffee and cocoa. That, compounded with high internal corruption, makes life difficult for the grower, those exporting into foreign markets, and the labor force, inasmuch as instances of indentured labor have been reported in the country's cocoa and coffee production in every edition of the U.S. Department of Labor's list of goods produced by child labor or forced labor since 2009. Ivory Coast's economy has grown faster than that of most other African countries since independence. One possible reason for this might be taxes on export agriculture. Ivory Coast, Nigeria, and Kenya were exceptions as their rulers were themselves large cash crop producers, and the newly independent countries desisted from imposing penal rates of taxation on export agriculture, with the result that their economies were doing well. Languages in Cote d'Ivoire, French, the official language, is taught in schools and serves as a lingua franca in the country. An estimated 70 languages are spoken in Ivory Coast. One of the most common is Dioula, which acts as a trade language, as well as a language commonly spoken by the Muslim population. Education in Cote d'Ivoire, a large part of the adult population, in particular women, is illiterate. Many children between 6 and 10 years are not enrolled in school. The majority of students in secondary education are male. At the end of secondary education, students can sit the baccalaureate examination. The country has a number of universities, such as the Université de Cocody in Abidjan and the Université de Bouaké in Bouaké. In 2012, there were 57,541 students enrolled at the post-secondary diploma level, 23,008 students studying for a bachelor's or master's degree, and 269 PhD students. Enrollment in tertiary education suffered during the political crisis, dropping from 9.03% to 4.46% of the 18 to 25-year cohort between 2009 and 2012. Science and technology in Cote d'Ivoire. According to the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Ivory Coast devotes about 0.13% of GDP to GERD. Apart from low investment, other challenges include inadequate scientific equipment, the fragmentation of research organizations, and a failure to exploit and protect research results. The share of the National Development Plan for 2012 to 2015 that is devoted to scientific research remains modest. Within the section on greater wealth creation and social equity, 63.8% of the total budget for the plan, just 1.2% is allocated to scientific research. 24 national research programs group public and private research and training institutions around a common research theme. These programs correspond to 8 priority sectors for 2012 to 2015, namely, health, raw materials, agriculture, culture, environment, governance, mining and energy, and technology. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, click on like button. If you want to watch more videos like this, click on the subscription button below, it's free subscription.